Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is Sunday, and yes, the Inside Scoop airs today. It will be a Sunday show from now on. And April 1st, we got something special coming to this channel. Actually, after April 1st, this channel will never be the same. I'm very excited about it. It's one of the reasons I'm here at On3. Just an absolute game changer, not only for On3, but also the On3 Recruits channel. Remember, April 1, I will see you there. What do you guys think I'm talking about? I was wondering. Let me know, comment section below. If you guys have any guesses, I'm willing to give a prize to anybody that can guess this correctly. Now, what do I mean by prize? We got no money. We got no tickets. I could give you a shout out, like on this channel. I could give you a shout out. I could follow you on Twitter. I don't know what that's worth to you, but I'd let you actually host this show if you got it correct, but that might get me into a little trouble. So, but let me know. Anyway, comment section below. What do you guys think the big news is going to be on April 1st? All right. It's a massive show today because it's been a crazy weekend. Recruiting finally woke up. Actually, USC, they're the ones that woke up and chose violence, flipping Georgia's top-rated commitment in five-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. Plus, they did more. We're going to cover it all. And it just finally feels like we're back in the swing of things from recruiting because the momentum kind of died off in January. February was the actual dead period, so there's a reason why the momentum died off. Then we get back to it at March with the visits, and now that March is kind of ending and the weather's getting warmer, this is the start of the craziness for recruiting season. I'm locked in. I want you guys to be locked in. I don't want you to miss any of this. Speaking of missing out, it's tourney time, March Madness, it's here. We don't want you to miss out on any of the action, so here's how we're going to watch all the games. Prime Video, they are streaming every tournament game live with a subscription to either Paramount or Max, and lots of these games are on while we're at work. So log in, sneak in those games while you're on the clock. Prime Video has you covered. Watch every game live on your phone. You can use your laptop, or you can just sit at home and relax on Prime Video with a subscription. It's March, it's madness. Stream it all on Amazon Prime Video. All right, before we start today's show, I got something for you guys. I want to look at this top 10 graphic. This is what happened over the weekend. So Ohio State, they are now number one. It came from a couple changes in the On3 industry rankings, but Ohio State jumps LSU in the 2 spot. But look at who is at number 3. USC, the Trojans, all the way from outside the top 50 all the way to number 3 today. Yes, they did this all today from outside the top 50 up to number 3 in the country. Then you got Notre Dame, Alabama, FSU sitting there at 7, Oregon, Auburn, and Texas rounding out the top 10. UGA sitting at 11. Of course, these rankings are going to change, but look at USC sitting there at number 3. Today's show, we're going to get answers on how they got there. I'm going out to USC, then I'm going back to Georgia, then we're going to talk a little FSU as well. Big show today. Let's get to it. What a day for USC. I woke up to some big news. The flip of five-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. Then the Trojans go out and they land another elite defensive line prospect in the South. This time it was edge Isaiah Gibson from Warner Robins, Georgia. A massive recruiting weekend. Heck, it might not be done yet. The Trojans, they started the day, get this, ranked 54th in the country. They're currently ranked number 3. They got it all done in one day, and like I said, they might not be done. That's why I got USC recruiting insider Scott Schrader on the show. We're going to break it all down, but first, USC fans, recruiting is alive. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel because we're talking Trojan recruiting all off season. So jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on Scott Schrader. Scott, it's all coming together. I know they had some big names on campus. It was going to be a big visit weekend, but did you expect the fireworks that we've seen this weekend?
No, I expected the guys to have a pretty strong experience. I think the relationship that a lot of these defensive linemen anyway, the guys that have committed, just developed a really strong relationship in a relatively fast amount of time with Eric Henderson, the new defensive line coach that came from the Los Angeles Rams. So they had a big event yesterday, March 23rd. I think they ended up having like 60 guys. They had Aaron Donald was there as a guest of Eric Henderson, and of course that gets everybody excited. And I honestly thought that because this was the first visit for almost all of these guys, especially from Georgia, I was thinking it was going to take until the official visit for stuff to pop. So yeah, I was surprised on what's happening, and like you indicated, it's not probably not done yet.
Yeah, and we'll start with Justice Terry, right? He's the number 2 ranked defensive lineman in America, the number 8 overall prospect. Now he's from Manchester, Georgia, committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. Not just committed, but he was essentially the foundation of that class, literally and figuratively. So how was USC able to get it done this weekend? It's turning time, and I don't want you to miss any of the action for March Madness, so here's what we're going to do to watch all the games. Prime Video is streaming every tournament game live with a subscription to either Paramount or Max, and, lots of these games are on while we're at work. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to log on, sneak in these games while you're on the clock, and Prime Video has you covered. Watch every game live on your phone, on your laptop, or relax and watch it at home on Prime Video with a subscription. It's March. It's madness, and you can stream it all on Prime Video.
I think you have to start again with we'll refer to him as Coach Henny, Eric Henderson. I think without him at USC, none of what we're talking about right now probably happens. So you have to give him his credit there, but you also have to give credit to the entire USC defensive staff that is almost all new except for Sean Nua. Defensive line coach. He's now going to coach the edge rushers. So I think the combination of Henderson, a strong staff right now from top to bottom, and a fully funded NIL program for the first time in 3-4 years doesn't hurt either. So USC has the funds to be able to compete with the elite programs finally in that arena.
All right. So that news broke around 8 a.m. in the morning. And then it was time for Isaiah Gibson. Now, Isaiah Gibson, 6'4", 240 pounds from Warner Robins, Georgia. He was uncommitted at the time, but he was trending heavily to UGA coming into the weekend. I saw you put in a recruiting prediction pick on, I think it was Saturday night. What was your sources saying? Did you know that this was imminent?
I had just hit up. It's just asking. I said, "Hey, is there any way you can get any feel at all after this first visit on these guys?" And I specifically Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry, IJ. Those are like the 3 guys I asked about. I might have asked about a call. I forget everybody that I had asked about, and so I get a reply, "Call me," and I start hearing what is going, what had happened, and I'm thinking, I'm just like, there's just no way that you flipped Justice Terry. Okay. And, I was still at the point where I had to see it myself to believe it. It had to go up on social media for me to believe that they were doing what they're doing. So, it was a lot of excitement, and it's, it could continue to get crazy. Of course, we're realistic. Long way to go until December, right, Josh?
A long way to go. But even the Justice Terry recruitment, it even caught our own On Three's Hayes Fawcett off guard. He didn't even have a commit graphic ready for Justice Terry. It was just a massive weekend, especially on the defensive line. So that leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
Elijah Griffin is the number 1 defensive lineman. Justice Terry's the number 2. They're both in the state of Georgia. Elijah Griffin is from Savannah, Georgia. Also trending heavily to UGA in the recruiting prediction machine, but dare I say, could he be the next USC Trojan commitment?
I didn't get a sense on where things are on a timeline if he were to make a decision and commit, but USC does feel like they're in a pretty strong spot with him as well. So this will be something we'll follow up on to kind of get an idea what's going on. But we knew he was not going to be among the guys that were going to announce a commitment in the relative near future.
All right. Now I want to talk about quarterback Julian Lewis, because prior to this weekend, he was the only commitment in this class, and he'd been the only commitment for about 6 or 7 months. This weekend, he was not in Los Angeles. Julian Lewis was in Boulder, Colorado, visiting the Buffaloes. Do you think this news helps with his recruitment? Because he is taking visits everywhere. He'll be at USC next weekend, but he is checking out Alabama and Georgia and Auburn and Colorado. Do you think that this momentum could actually help keep Julian Lewis committed?
I absolutely do think this helps. It unquestionably, in my mind, this helps. I think that part of maybe some uncertainty that may have been there about USC for him was was would he be able to surround himself with the kind of talent that they are at Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Texas and places like that. He's very, very interested in what's going on with USC's recruiting efforts. So I can tell you that much. So I would say absolutely this helps him tremendously. I think the fact that the momentum that's kind of they're gaining right now as we're heading into the official visit season here in not too long of a future. I think a couple months away now.
Yep.
He'll be on campus March 30th for another visit, and it was confirmed he will be there. So I think that it has to help him tremendously, and I think going forward it's going to help with a lot of other guys as well.
All right, Scott, any final thoughts on the weekend? Do you think in the next 24 to 48 hours we could see another commitment or two drop?
Yeah, it's one of those things to where I don't want to say yes or no because I'm not. I don't know. But it would not surprise me if there are more in the next 24 to 48 hours. I think there were some other guys that really felt strongly about what they had experienced yesterday. But not everybody's like ready to do it, at the same time as other guys. So I think there are a few other defensive linemen. I think there's another cornerback. And so there's a running back as well that's really, really high on USC that I've always felt could commit at any time. But I think a lot of these guys, as they get away from USC after yesterday, they start realizing that they still want to take those trips that they had scheduled and do that as an uncommitted prospect.
Yeah, well, regardless, I think some of the guys that were on campus this weekend, whether they commit in the next 24 or 48 hours, I think USC will end up signing a few of the guys that were on campus that maybe haven't even committed yet. So this kind of really kicks off recruiting season for USC. You guys have done an incredible job on the site. I encourage everybody to go check it out. There's so much going on with USC recruiting coming out of this weekend. It's been really fun talking to you, Scott. Appreciate you dropping by the Inside Scoop today.
Hey, thank you, Josh. Appreciate you.
We got good and bad news to cover today coming out of Athens, Georgia. The Bulldogs. 5-star Justice Terry. He flips away from Georgia to USC. But there's some good news, too. The Dogs, they go out and land quarterback Jared Curtis in the 2026 class. Curtis is the number 3 overall quarterback in that cycle. Just a crazy weekend for Georgia recruiting with the highs and the lows. We're going to break it all down in this video with Jeremy Johnson of Dogs HQ. But first, UGA fans, you got to do me a favor. We got a lot to talk about. I need you to hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're growing this page. We need you to be a part of it. So go ahead, hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Jeremy Johnson. Now, Jeremy, I don't know if we should start with the bad news first or the good news, but it's Sunday, so let's start with the good news. Nashville Christian 4-star quarterback Jared Curtis committed to Georgia on Saturday, choosing the Bulldogs over Ohio State, Tennessee, and Texas. A big pickup. But I want to ask you, what makes Curtis so valuable that UGA would take his commitment this early?
Well, obviously the thing that's going on with the 2025 guys, you just never know which one of those guys you're going to land. There's no guarantee you land either or of the 3, so why not take a guy that's, and go ahead and lock up the 2026 guy, one of the elite guys in that class. So, I mean, it kind of gives you a peace of mind that, hey, you got 2026 in the bag, and he's a very talented football player as well. So, got a big arm, big guy, can move around a little bit. So, it's a peace of mind type of thing if you're asking me. So,
yeah, hey. Anytime you can land a guy like that this early, why not? You could build the whole 2026 class around a top arm, and landing the number 3 quarterback is a heck of a start at that position. All right, so we'll get to the bad news now. Justice Terry, 5-star defensive lineman, the number 2 defensive lineman in America, flipped his commitment to USC, and it shocked me. I woke up about 8 Central, and it had already gone down, and Hayes Fawcett, On3's Hayes Fawcett, didn't even have a graphic ready. Caught him off guard, too. So did this come as a shock to Georgia?
I think it probably did. The first time I'd heard anything of it, even a sniffle of it, was maybe last night, late last night. And then, the news, we wake up to the news this morning. So, I think it is a little bit of a shock, and it's something they're going to have to try to recover from. I think they will be continuously in there and, still recruiting Justice. Justice is a really talented football player. He's right there in the state of Georgia over in Manchester, which is near the Columbus area, about 2.5 hours from Athens. So, obviously, he has a lot of love for Georgia. And, I think Georgia still loves him, and he's still going to be a priority in this class. I mean, obviously, nothing's done until you sign on that dotted line, and I think that's going to be a very, very interesting recruitment until it's over for sure.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if Georgia still had a shot, but obviously, I mean, like you said, he's still in the backyard. He ain't going anywhere for at least a year. He's not going to make it to USC until then. So we're not going to hear the last of this from the Dogs. We'll probably talk about this as the cycle goes on. But what a shocker to wake up to on Sunday morning. And then USC wasn't done. They weren't done in the state of Georgia, because then it was edge Elijah Gibson from Warner Robins. He committed to USC, and it got me thinking. Man, 5-star defensive lineman Elijah Griffin, the #1 defensive lineman in America from Savannah, Georgia, was also on campus. Is there any concern over him? Because if you look at the recruiting prediction machine, Georgia trending heavily, but Elijah Griffin, any concern over USC recruitment?
I mean, anytime you see what happened today happen, I mean, all bets are off, and there is always something to be worried about. USC may be a program that's in there, but I feel like Georgia, South Carolina, Clemson, some of these other programs that have been in it for Elijah are still going to be in it. I don't feel like there's anything imminent with him at the moment. I know he loves Georgia, and I know, they had a lot of ties with that program. But the interesting piece of that is now that Justice Terry is a USC commit. Justice was someone who was really high on Elijah, trying to get him to join him in Athens. So right. I assume that pitch will now pick up and move to LA. So Isaiah Gibson's another guy that's not far from Elijah as far as geographically speaking in the state of Georgia. I mean, Macon's about, Warner Robins area is about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes from Savannah, an hour and a half maybe. So, all these guys know each other. So I'm sure they're going to be talking and trying to get Elijah to jump in the boat with them over there and at USC. So, anytime that happens, yeah, there's something to worry about. And obviously Juju Lewis is a major Georgia target, but he's a USC commit right now. So, I mean, if these guys gang up and start putting buzz in Elijah's ear a little bit, hey, right. We got some special going on with out here in Georgia with the guys from Georgia, going out to LA and doing some special things, because there's definitely a need for guys like Elijah Griffin in that rotation over there at USC. So I wouldn't say I'm worried, but I think there's always a reason to worry when you think about a guy like that.
Yeah, in just like a week or two ago, I mean, we're looking here at UGA's options at quarterback. You got Julian Lewis, you got Matt Zollers, you got Ryan Montgomery. Just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I think I was ready to pencil in Julian Lewis into this UGA quarterback class, but not so fast. I mean, for a while there, Julian Lewis was the only commitment on USC's commit list for the 2025 class. Now he's joined by 2 top 50 players, and now there's a trio of commitments at USC. So bring this back to UGA QB recruiting. How do you see this playing out between Julian Lewis, Matt Zollers, and Ryan Montgomery?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing, and I think the clock's ticking. I mean, because Matt Zollers is going off the board April 4th, regardless of who is where. Right. He's going to make his decision. He's going to take his visits over the next couple of weeks. George is going to get the last visit on April 2nd. 2 days later, he commits somewhere. So there's a reason that lines up like that. So, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think Georgia's opportunity will come with that last visit, and I think they have an opportunity to make an impression on him. But I also know Matt really enjoys some of these other schools that have been recruiting him for a long time and have a long-standing relationship with him. I don't think just because Georgia showed up, they're automatically the team to beat just because they're Georgia with him. I think he's a guy that's actually going through the process and dealing with some of the pros and cons of those programs. So that his recruitment will be interesting. And if he does land with Georgia, I mean, Julian Lewis will still be a target, in my opinion. I think he'll still be a guy that Georgia recruits and keeps in contact with, because you never know what's going to happen. And he's got some interesting schools on his board. Obviously, he's committed to USC, and now USC's class looks a lot better. Like you said, he was the only guy on the board a minute ago, literally just 24 hours ago, and now he's got two other Peach State guys with him. So
right.
I think Georgia's definitely in that. I think Alabama's a program that's in that. Colorado is a program that is interesting. Auburn is another program that's going to make this interesting. I mean, he's got some good options on the table. And then Ryan Montgomery keeps coming back to Georgia. I mean, he's a really talented football player. I mean, the other 2 guys I think are the guys they want, but Ryan Montgomery is, a viable option as well. Should something happen with these other two guys and they not end up in Athens, so I think that's kind of been the narrative, and I think that's probably accurate as far as what's going on at this point.
Yeah, Georgia fans, I want to hear you guys weigh in. Let me know, comment section below. How do you see quarterback recruiting? Do you like the options? Would you add more options? Do you think that it's going to be Julian Lewis, Matt Zollers, or Ryan Montgomery, or a combination of the two? Let me know, comment section below. I think this weekend was a little bit of a wake-up call for Georgia recruiting, right? I mean, not to say that recruiting's ever easy, but things were coming a little too easy for Georgia, it seemed, and now a little bit of a wake-up call from USC Trojans. Jeremy Johnson from Dogs HQ, appreciate you taking the time today to stop by, talk a little Georgia recruiting today on the Inside Scoop.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. It was a crazy day for sure.
Yep. Florida State held something called Legacy Weekend, and they brought back some famous alum, but they also brought in some big-name recruits to watch spring practice on Saturday. And I got Michael Langston from War Chant on to take us behind the scenes of this big visit weekend for the Noles. But first, FSU fans, do me a favor right now. Jump on board, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're talking Noles recruiting all offseason long, so hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Michael Langston from War Chant, some big names on campus, and we'll just get right to it with five-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. So he's been taking visits. He's from the state of Mississippi. Everybody thinks that Mississippi State kind of the unofficial leader right now. My question to you coming out of this visit to Tallahassee, is FSU going to be a team that we talk about moving forward in this recruitment?
Yeah, I definitely think they'll have that. It showed throughout the weekend. He had some eyebrows-ing, comments of, if my parents drop me off, I feel like they'd be very comfortable with him here. So that's big. And then just his comfort with this offense is certainly attractive. I mean, it's a heavy attraction. People forget, like, when his recruitment first started, he named FSU the #1 school. That was before he had really taken some visits, and all this stuff is positive. He's saying a lot of all these great things, and I think FSU will be a major player. But I need to see some stuff where it's some body language and tendency that leads me to believe that he would leave that state. I haven't seen that yet personally. I would think more likely to stay in the state. I need to see more. He's going to officially visit FSU for sure. He's probably going to be back there again this spring. He certainly loves everything, but it's one thing loving somebody, and it's another thing in actually pulling the trigger and leaving that state. So far, I haven't got that warm and fuzzy vibe that he would definitely do that, but I definitely think they're a major player.
Yeah, and boy, there's some teams trying. I know Tennessee, Alabama, LSU. Now it looks like Florida State going to lock in an official visit with him. So we'll see if these teams can kind of shake him loose from the state of Mississippi. Speaking about shaking loose, defensive lineman Jaylen Wiggins, he's committed to UF, he's committed to UF. But the weird part about this is the 6'5", 235-foot defensive lineman is from Tallahassee, and he's one of the top defensive linemen in the country. I know FSU doesn't want to let him out of their backyard. Is he a flip candidate?
He is a flip candidate, but it's an interesting, weird recruitment, Josh, because he's from Tallahassee, but he grew up liking Florida. But FSU is the team that really noticed him and spotted him before anybody. He's camped at FSU, I think, since he said he was in the 8th grade or really young. So he's been there a lot. He loves Coach JP, the defensive end coach. He loves Norvell. He loves what they're doing, and he keeps visiting. I always say, it's Tallahassee and it's a short ride, but usually when kids that aren't going, that are maybe leaving elsewhere, they don't visit as frequently as say Jaylen does, and Jaylen's over there a lot. He's visited constantly. I'm from Tallahassee, but there's a thing too of the tricky thing where, like, yeah, you live here, but sometimes you want to get away from college, and that doesn't equal Florida either. I don't think it's I don't feel he's a rock solid commit. Like, I don't look at him like he's rock solid, he's definitely going to Florida. I look at him like, even if he didn't go to Florida, I don't think it's a guarantee that it would be FSU either. I think it's a process of some parts of him wants to be there because of what FSU does with development and stuff like that. And some parts are kind of like, I want to get away and go to college. So I think it's a recruitment that while he's listed as a commitment. I think he's very, very open to a lot of schools. I think he's going to take a lot of official visits. He's definitely going to visit FSU, from what I was told, both by Jaylen and just people around him. And so I think it's one where they're just chipping away, keep chipping away to make sure, like, they're almost like making it where, forget where your location is. What do we do with the player? What do we do with the culture and the brotherhood? And he sees all that. So I think that's the part they're working on to get over that, kind of concern of maybe wanting to get away and kind of block out where the location is. So they're definitely a factor. I think several other schools are factors. I think it's a pretty open recruitment personally, even though he's committed. But I just don't think it's one that's going to be over for a while until, he comes to a decision of, this is definitely what I want to do. But certainly Florida does a great job. They've done a great job in his recruitment. But I think you have certain changes on the Florida staff. You don't know what their DC situation is going to be after this year if they struggle again. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the year. And I just think it's a pretty open recruitment.
Yeah, I think it's one to watch. Like you said, probably a long play there. Just keep getting them back on campus and see what happens.
Right.
The next prospect's has another tie to the Gators. Vernell Brown. He's a 4-star wide receiver who is a legacy prospect of UF. But are the Gators Florida State's biggest competition here, or somebody else? It's tourney time, and I don't want you to miss any of the action for March Madness. So here's what we're going to do to watch all the games. Prime Video is streaming every tournament game live with a subscription to either Paramount or Max. And, lots of these games are on while we're at work. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to log on, sneak in these games while you're on the clock, and Prime Video has you covered. Watch every game live on your phone, on your laptop, or relax and watch it at home on Prime Video with a subscription. It's March, it's madness, and you can stream it all on Prime Video.
No, it'd be Ohio State. He even clarified that after the visit. He said FSU and Ohio State are his top two teams. FSU's been on him for a while. They've been working on him for a while. They recruit him even probably for a few years. He's a guy they've got on campus frequently. I think he visited early in the spring and then visited again this weekend, and then locked in an official visit to FSU, which was a big deal. He told us afterwards that he locked in one for June 21st, which that seems to be the kind of big weekend that they're kind of circling for the summer. And Dugans has done a really good job at FSU, and he really connects with Norvell, and definitely says Norvell is one of the most unique coaches that he's been around, and there's certainly a connection there that's unique compared to other schools. We know what Ohio State does with receivers. It's shown year after year, the top guys they get. I would slightly lean towards Ohio State, but I think FSU is a major player in here. I'm doing a 10 to watch that we will put on War Chant later this week, and he wasn't originally going to be on there because of this visit and the intel I got. I put him in the 10 to watch, so that's the one where mutual interest and all that stuff. So I do think they're a major player for Vernell, and they have been for a while. He's a guy they just kept staying on. And the other factor is Vernell's 7-on-7 quarterback is Tramel Jones, and they're pretty tight. So that's another factor that could help FSU, because when you're going against Ohio State, you need some other factors beyond, hey, we throw the ball a lot. There's got to be connections and something where that connects the kid personally to your school if you want to have a chance to pull it off.
Yeah, and I know Tramel Jones was also on campus over the weekend, so not only are they 7-on-7 partners, but Tramel Jones and Vernell Brown were kind of spending time together in Tallahassee over the weekend. Now, another prospect that I know has high interest in Florida State is running back Alvin Henderson. He's the 7th ranked back in the country, and he's out of Alabama. He's from Elba, Alabama, but it seems to me like this one, which is coming down to the stretch, he's coming down to a commitment soon, seems to be an FSU Miami battle. Is that how you read it?
Yeah, I did. I read it that way. Once again, Alvin declined to talk, which we expected. That's usually what happens when you get near the end. Kids don't want to talk when they have a
coming.
I think it's either late this month, or early next month. That he didn't, like I said, we didn't talk to him, but that's kind of the gist I got.
A couple weeks until he decides.
Yeah, that's the feeling. I do know FSU feels good about the spot they're in. I do know Miami feels like they've done a really good job, and they're a legit threat.
Yeah.
And then the weirdest thing, while I was gone doing what I was doing, off the beat, um, that's when FSU started making the move, and then I heard a lot about Auburn slipped a lot, just in this recruitment. And then he does like Alabama, but I think it's also a kid that occasionally you do get kids that it doesn't happen a lot in the state of Alabama, especially for FSU targets, that kids want to get away and do something different, that they feel like the direction the program is going the right way. I think that certainly would give an edge to FSU if you go by the factors of production and what they've done the last 2 years. And the relationship with FSU is longer,
Yeah.
I feel, in that recruitment. So I would probably lean a little bit towards FSU, but I think it's close. I don't think it's like a slam dunk, but
Right.
they had him again on campus this weekend, decked out in FSU stuff. Spent a lot of time with Trammell, a lot. Like early on in that visit, we saw them just attached at the hip together when they were around campus. When they were at practice, we noticed that he was with him a lot. They talked a lot. And Trammell's on him. Trammell actually mentioned Auburn more than Miami, so that was kind of interesting. But overall, I think he's the guy that they would want. They do have Usman Chroma coming over in April, on April 2nd. I found that out over the weekend, so that's another visit. And then they also had Byron
Can they
Lewis over
take
the
them
weekend
both?
on.
How many running backs
I think
can they
they'll.
take?
I think they would take two.
Okay.
I think they would like to have two different type of guys,
Mhm.
where Alvin's more of an all-purpose, do everything type of guy. You can run him in the hashes, you can run him, outside, you can throw the ball to him a lot. And then I think a guy like Byron Lewis is more of a between the tackle guy. You can use him in that way, but it's kind of, you look at the FSU room and the running back room, you see a different skill set for just about every guy. Even Cam Davis, Mike Dancy is different from Cam. Just a lot of different versatility that FSU really covets in that room. They don't want guys that are all, just the same and just, incredible runners between the tackles. They want guys that they can utilize in different ways. And
Mhm.
I think that kind of fits what they did last year. And I think they're kind of going to probably do a similar thing this year, where they get one guy that's like an all purpose everything, and then they get another guy that maybe between the hashes is incredible. So I think their plan is still the same of adding a few versatile backs.
All right. Well, we will find out here in a couple weeks if FSU is going to add Alvin Henderson or go in a different direction. The last prospect I want to talk to you about is committed to Florida State, and the reason I want to talk to you about him is because Javion Hilson, he had this to say after leaving Alabama, quote, "My recruitment is still open." That was like 2 weeks ago. Now, Javion Hilson
Yeah.
decommitted from Alabama, flipped his commitment to Florida State, has been committed to Florida State for about, 6 or 8 weeks now,
Yeah.
and goes back to Alabama 2 weeks ago and says, "My recruitment is still open." Mike, how is FSU dealing with this, and what's the latest on his commitment status?
I think they treat him like, one, he's part of the family. They do that. That's a normal thing they do. But I think too that they understand, like, people aren't going to just stop recruiting Javion because he added him. I think that's an important point, but I think it's another important point that he didn't do anything with that. It was like still committed to FSU. He was there this weekend at FSU. Spent a lot of time around Jared Verse. I've heard that helped a lot. Just being in interacting with a lot of the former legacies that were there. Wart Dunn was there. A lot of Corey Simon. A lot of top former FSU legends were all there. That I think that really gave juice to the weekend, as you sometimes use, Josh. I think that was a big juice part of their weekend, of having them around guys that have been there and done that, or getting ready to go to the NFL. So I think that helped. Got a chance to watch the practice. He was very engaged. I watched guys just to see. I want to see their body language of how
Mm-hmm.
in tune they are to everything, and he was locked into everything that Coach JP was doing, and Mike Norvell was doing. So I think it's going to be a recruitment that you have to go to the finish line, and you're going to have to keep recruiting him. Grew up a fan of FSU, but we know these teams are going to try to pull him back. But I think overall they're still in a good spot, but they're going to have to fight for it
Yeah.
because teams are going to still recruit him. Alabama is certainly still going to recruit him. Miami and other schools are going to still do that, but I still think they're in a good spot, at least right now, as far as that recruitment. I think it was very vital that they got him on campus this weekend. I think that
You don't
having
think
him
this has
there,
like you don't think this has like Armando Blunt vibes?
not yet. I don't
Okay.
get that feeling yet. I do get the feeling he's going to be recruited, and I think he wants to be recruited.
Yeah.
I mean that these visits he's taken, he's gone to UCF. I know he's going to Alabama. So I don't get the feeling that he's telling them one. I mean, because the Ramondo thing was like he was telling them one thing and doing another, or feeling another. And I think with this kid, it's pretty straight, direct. And I think he's keeping the process open, and think that's the biggest takeaway I have is he's not closing the process. He's certainly like
Yeah.
if something catches his eye, he could definitely flip somewhere else if it falls in that place. But I do think it's a big factor when the kids grow up a fan of a team and they're pretty locked in a team, and that team is had a productive few years going, and I think FSU that helps FSU kind of solidify that. I think with Armando Blunt, you have Miami pulling you different ways. There's a lot of ties to Miami. There's a lot of ties to lead him to go there. A lot of Miami Central kids went there. I don't think you have as much that with a guy like Hilson who went to Cocoa. I think FSU's gotten some kids from that general area, so it will be a fight. They will have to fight for it, but I think overall right now they're in an okay spot.
Yeah. Now I don't think anybody from this list is coming off the board anytime soon. Maybe Alvin Henderson. Do you have anybody on commit watch right now for Florida State recruiting?
Yeah, I would say a few guys. For me, Gregory Thomas is one that could commit. He did say he might do it in the summer. I got a sense that one feels really good for FSU, that I could see him kind of ending it earlier than expected. I think another one is Myron Charles out of Port Charlotte, Florida, a 4-star defensive lineman that visited over the weekend.
Yep.
I'm getting ready to put in a pick for FSU. I feel really good about where they sit. And I think another one that's going to decide in the next sometime the late spring is Zaire Addison out of the Jacksonville, Florida area. That's a guy that Alex Atkins has put a lot of work in. I know Clemson is a major threat. I do consider them a strong threat, but I think that's a guy they could add into the fold. So those are, I think, a few guys that are coming up that I think they're positioning themselves for to possibly get some, late spring decisions or early summer.
All right. Well, you can almost feel it heating up just as the temperature's heating up. Florida State recruiting is heating up, and we know it'll be red hot by the time the summer starts. But FSU fans, how are we feeling? Let me know, comment section below. Who do you guys have on commit watch? Is there anybody right now that you think is imminent? Let me know, comment section below. Mike Langston, War Chant, you guys got a ton of stuff up there coming out of this Legacy weekend. I enjoyed reading it. You guys should go check it out. Appreciate you taking your time, stopping by on the Inside Scoop today.
No problem.
Thank you for watching this video. And if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel. And also do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.